Up next is NBS Frontline. Charles, what are you looking at discussing with the panelists tonight?
Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Canary. We are still continuing focus on the passing of former Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olunyah. Like you said, tomorrow is the celebration that sends him off, finally. Yesterday we had the state funeral, we had the viewing of, his last visit to the Parliament he presided over. So we'll be linking to Omoro, Lalogi, and having a discussion in the studio as well.
Frontline. The final curtain falls upon Jacob Okori Olunyah, a man eulogized as a political icon, a unifier, and a legislator without equal. His demise marked the first time a sitting Speaker of Parliament of Uganda has died in office. And so, for many, it provided the first opportunity to witness a state funeral with all the pomps and fanfare it entails. But controversy soon erupted over what some called exaggerated cost of the planned state funeral. A controversy that some like Kira Municipality MP Ibrahim Semujunganda say could have easily been avoided.
Because you needed to explain to the public what it means to accord someone a state funeral. A state funeral is extremely expensive. But every day you are pleading, no, this is not the budget, now this is the budget.
The ever-fluctuating funeral budget figure, as well as the contentions about how it was to be spent, also raised eyeballs. As the late Olunyah is finally laid to rest, the task of unpacking his complex legacy has just begun. What lessons can the political class learn from the leader and the man Olunyah was? And what takeaways are there from the circumstances around his death and subsequent funeral preparations? This is The Frontline. Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the NBS Frontline. My name is Charles Mwangushampagi. We continue the discussion on the late Jacob Lokori Olunyah, former Speaker of Parliament, former Member of Parliament for Omoro County, and former National Vice Chairman for the National Resistance Movement for Northern Uganda. We'll start the discussion just before I introduce the people that I have in studio. We'll first link to our Bureau Chief in Gulu, Ben Sonongom, who is in Lalogi, to introduce some of the panelists who are joining us live from Lalogi, where Jacob Olunyah will be laid to rest tomorrow. Benson?
Thank you, Charles. A very good evening to our viewers who are watching Frontline today, right from the heartbeat of Gulu City, and our guest today on the Frontline, seated right here, the friends and people who work with the late Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olunyah. Starting with the frontliner, Honorable Norbert Mao, who is also the DP party president. Welcome to NBS Frontline today.
Thank you very much, Benson, and good evening, viewers. Thank you, Charles.
And again, also we have the Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Honorable Chris Baramos. Welcome to NBS Frontline.
Thank you very much, Alice, and good evening, viewers. I am happy to be back on the front line, but this time from the city of Gulu. Gulu in my language means heaven. So I'm happy to talk from heaven.
Thank you. And probably it's the first time that you're having Frontline also from Gulu.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. And we have also the Member of Parliament for Kilak North, Honorable Akola Anthony, who is also the chair of Acholi Parliamentary Group. Honorable Akola Anthony, you've been on the news for the past 1 week. Welcome to NBS Frontline.
Thank you very much. It has not been a very good period of time. You know, we've lost a member of parliament who was part of Acholi Parliamentary Group, but above all, he was also the patron of Acholi Parliamentary Group. So it has not been easy for us. From the sickness time to the time of his death and up to now, it has not been easy at all.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And in the studio, definitely we have Charles, who will be taking over in a bit. But we want to start our discussion right here in Gulu, where Jacob probably was a leader in this part of the region. And I would want to start with Honorable Norbert Mao, because I think they were very close friends with Honorable Jacob. He went to Chateau to visit him. And when he came back, that tweet he gave before Jacob died, there's a lot of people who interpreted it very differently. And today we are talking about the legacy of the late Jacob, but also the controversies that surrounded his death and after death, and as well what we call the state funeral. We saw in the Parliament of Uganda, there's a lot of outbursts about the state funeral. We have seen the budget that was sent earlier, the estimated 2.5 billion, later Parliament passed 1.8 billion, later reduced to 1.2 billion. We have had members of Parliament from this region definitely having a lot of issues with the budget. But I want to start with you. The legacy of Right Honorable, the late Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olunyah. Honorable Mao.
Thank you, Benson. Like I wrote in my tribute published today in the Monitor, I said, friends are relatives that you choose. And Jacob and I were very close. Nothing separated us, even when we would disagree politically. So I have known Jacob consistently since 1988. There are those who have known him because of his prominence, but I mainly paid tribute to the person who was a very generous man. I have testified to how during my parliamentary campaigns I went to Kampala looking for friends to support me, and many of them were terrified about my chances because my opponent was very strong. But when I met Jacob, just put his hand in his jacket, pulled out a wad of notes, started counting, and then he stopped and gave me the entire bundle. He had got his salary that day. So I came to continue my campaign, which was really a shoestring campaign. Jacob belonged to a party at any given time, but he was not partisan. Jacob belonged to a tribe, definitely. He had a clan, he had a culture, but he tolerated other cultures. One of his biggest failures was a failure to learn Luganda. He used to make jokes that he is a newsreader, and he would say something like, "Amawulire gangano gamusomerwa lokori," and we would all roar with laughter. And then one day he told us that he learned of the death of General Ito Jok on the news in Ateso, and he could not speak Ateso, but he forged something, and he would tell us that he had the newsreader say, "Helicopter pale pale helicopter pirit," whatever he meant by it. And so that was Jacob, and I'm glad that he's seeing, though the occasion is solemn, but there is also celebration and appreciation for what God has done. The controversy started right from the time of his evacuation to Seattle. Now, many people should know that when you make commitments to public officials, the commitments come at a cost. That's why I denounced those I called night dancers who went to demonstrate outside his hospital window. And I call them witches. And I think that's the true description. I published on Twitter and also on Applied for Treatment Abroad. He or she will be evacuated by the fastest means possible. In Jacob's condition, only Uganda Airlines could take him. And the person who authorized that was the president of Uganda. I invited the demonstrators in Seattle to visit State House Entebbe or State House Nakasero to express their grievances, rather than yelling at a man fighting for his life in Seattle. So that was the controversy. I refuse to accept that fake shield of activism for better health services. I don't think that is a shield that we can accept. The other controversy, of course, was the cost of the burial. Again, people should know what it means to have a state funeral. It's something which you put the word state in, comes with costs. And if you don't want to meet the costs, you don't put it there. And of course, there was very poor communication from the National Organizing Committee. It looks like they were tongue-tied. It was Honorable Chris Baryomonsi who was struggling to explain matters. But this was a straightforward matter, and I believe there should be a standard of what a state funeral is. So it challenges our institutions when we don't have a standard cost and a budget of what a state funeral is. And the other controversy, of course, now came in the form of the cause of death. Now, I want to state here clearly that people should talk about what they know. There is a lot of speculation. Some people were saying the coffin is even empty. I'm very happy that the family agreed that MPs should view the body. I think that silenced a lot of negativity. I saw Jacob at the mortuary. I saw him in Seattle alive. And one person called me from Gulu and asked me, did you see the body? We understand that the coffin is empty. Did you see, has he got all his body parts? I asked the gentleman, come on, do you expect me to be a pathologist? Do you expect me to open the coffin and start counting body parts? So I think there has been a lot of intrusion, and I really feel for the late speaker's family. There has been too much intrusion. The medical report is there. If the family is not convinced, we have the law known as the Inquest Act. The family can demand an inquest, and that can be done, led by senior judges. The last controversy was, of course, now concerning his, what the members have been debating. What is a dead speaker entitled to? That one is in the law, but people want to know. It is clear. The other one was, how do you elect another speaker when you have not buried the speaker who has died? That one also is in the law. And so on and so forth. So many of the controversies were driven by politics. And of course, I'm glad that I have been fighting for the truth. And I want to congratulate the Acholi Parliamentary Group for fighting for the truth. I don't think truth has a tribe. If you are wrong, it doesn't matter what your tribe was. Jacob had friends from all tribes. Incidentally, one of Jacob's best friends was Mr. Gashumba, Frank. Now, here is a person in whose company Jacob would really relax. He would simply call Frank Gashumba and they go for an afternoon of eating and drinking coffee, and they laugh. Now, Frank is a Muvandimwe, whatever it means in Acholi, and Jacob is from here. So, all those who are talking about sectarianism are misplacing their anger. We are opposing shallow-mindedness, we are opposing narrow-mindedness, we are opposing misguided activism. That's what we are opposing. We are opposing negative ideas. We can't oppose any tribe. We are a very cosmopolitan community.
And Chairman Mao, before I come to Honorable Akola Anthony, I want to pick your mind in just a minute. The question of the state funeral, which was raised in Parliament, I think by the Kira Municipality Member of Parliament, Honorable Semuju. What is a state burial, and should there be a ceiling? Because these controversies that we saw, and the names of the members of Parliament from Acholi sub-region, and the National Organizing Committee, so forth, should there be a ceiling? Should there be a debate that we know if a Speaker of Parliament dies, this is the amount of money that will be spent in his burial?
Of course, you can't put a ceiling, but you can put items because there is always inflation. What we know about a state funeral is that it starts with the ceremonies, the gun salutes. Those also cost money. You have a guard, you have a police band, you have that prayer in Kololo, which comes with costs because food was served there. Service providers had to be paid. And so the case of the burial of our speaker has shown some weaknesses. Number one, logistics management has been very weak. And number two, communication. The government could not even explain that Jacob had not died because there is that, that mortuary attendant in Turkey who is always recording videos, spreading propaganda. And it is a pity that some of our people from Acholi are feeding on that kind of diet of negative propaganda. Those people have a hidden political agenda, and they should be denounced. We went and found Jacob alive. How much money do you have to pay Norbert Mao for Norbert Mao to say a dead man is alive? How much money do you have to pay Jacob's brother? Jacob's brother saw his brother alive. So how much money do you have to pay Mr. Francis Emuna to say that Jacob is alive? How much money do you have to pay the Dr. Hancock, who signed that medical report, the senior doctor, to say that Jacob died on the day he died rather than earlier? How much money do you have to pay his son and daughter? And the daughter was in Kololo, that she was there when her father breathed his last. So all this has exposed a lot of negativity and politicking. But I believe that after laying Jacob to rest, there will be a lot of soul searching countrywide. Jacob has not lived in vain, and that's his legacy. In the politics, he had the skills to steer the house, and the members of parliament loved him, the Acholi people loved him, but I don't think many people had shown their love adequately to Jacob. If Jacob was to wake up now, I think he would be overwhelmed. I don't think many people, I believe many people are actually feeling guilty that they never expressed their love while he was alive.
Devil, I'm going to come back to you, Honorable Mao. Let me get to the Acholi Parliamentary Group Chairman, Honorable Akola Anthony. You've been on news for weeks now, and one of the controversies we've been talking about, your demands, 312 million shillings. And very many people saw it like you want to eat the money, you want to use the money for personal gains as members of parliament. But let's start with the legacy of Jacob. You're very close to the late speaker. Speak to us about it. What kind of man was he? Can you use the microphone?
I think our issue started at a point when people started treating that Jacob was dead. Actually, this man died many times. If anything, he qualifies to be almost Jesus Christ. Because people treated the man as dead several times when he was still alive. And he read all these tweets that were being sent that he's dead. I will remember that on the 15th of February, when I was already going home, I left Parliament. The deputy speaker then, who is now the current Speaker of Parliament, called and said, come very fast to my office. And she was calling me and Honorable Ojara Martin Mapenduzi of Gulu City for us to hurry to her office. I remember leaving Nakawa to going to the office of the Speaker. I was so worried. Because what came to my mind was that this man, who has been proclaimed several times dead, could have died now. And that could be the reason why the Speaker is calling me. So when we arrived in our office, she was very happy and laughing. Yeah. That's when my mind came back and said, okay, maybe there is something better, not about his dead. That is dead. So that is the time she told me, Jacob wants to speak to you and Honorable Jara Martin Mapenduzi. And I told him, in our local language, in the Acholi language, I bet Jara now Karatwana Wahadek. I don't know what is Karatwana in English.
It is a liquid salt made out of filtering ash.
I like that. So he really laughed because I said, I'm talking to a dead man. He laughed until the speaker decided to remove the phone from me because he said, no, he's laughing too much. But he was strong. And I even came in northern Uganda in the different social media and the radio station to tell them, our son is doing good. He will get back, and back to his office. Even the Friday before Norbert Mao, Lordship Owen Dolo, the Minister of Health, and the Speaker of Parliament, and the brother of Jacob went. That Friday, I talked to Jacob at night. It was around 11 p.m. At that time, the voice was now different. But I used a very hard word to the Speaker of Parliament that I will never forget. That, when are you coming? So the Speaker told him, I'm coming on Friday, on Tuesday. Said, if you delay, I don't want to use hard words on you. If you delay, you will take back home bonds. I think he knew he was not going to make it that time. The question at hand is the legacy of Jacob that people are talking about. The problem we have as human beings, we value something we don't have. At the time when Jacob was with us here, many people did not see all these good things we are talking about now. If anything, even on the floor of Parliament, I think Honorable Chris would bear me witness. There are people who are really against Jacob. But if you hear them talk and now the tears now come, you confirm that the problem we have in this world is that we don't value what we have. It can be your house, it can be your vehicle, it can be your brother, it can be your sister, your wife. People don't value what they have. Until that particular thing is gone, that is when you start to know that I have lost a very good thing that I had. When you're talking about the different issues coming about the death of Jacob and the different stories of who has killed him, what has killed him, and all that, to me it is not a surprise. In the culture of Africans, and Northern Africans, if you bring it down to the culture of Luo, the Acholi's culture, people don't die. Even if you die of malaria, the first question will ask, how did malaria get to him? And then when you say it was mosquito, why particularly him that mosquito bit? Then you ask a question, no, but other people also got malaria, they did not die. Why is him particularly dying? So this is the culture that is there. We begin to ask, and you start by the wife of somebody. Maybe the wife killed him. Then, whom did he quarrel with before that sickness? Was it Honorable Norbert Mao, the brother? Was it the neighbor? We look for reasons as to why somebody has died, because we believe people don't die. So to me, it is normal for people to look for different reasons or causes of death. But the question is, in our culture, after burying, in 3 days for male, in 4 days for female, we sit down. And then we start to see the different ways that people were mourning, and you find out, and you sort out the problem.
I actually wanted to take you on the issue of the state funeral. And again, you are part of the National Organizing Committee. There's a lot of coordination between the National Organizing Committee and the local organizing committee led by the chair of Omoro District. And you became the talk of the town on the issue of the budget. And I want to pick your mind on that. Did you feel it was too much for you to handle? Did you feel that people were talking on things that they didn't know?
My frustration, number one, is that as the chair of Acholi Parliamentary Group, when Jacob died on Sunday, on Monday we sat down and said, we need to have our members in the different committees and the subcommittees for the state burial. And we are happy that that suggestion was taken up. And there was a reason. The reason was that we should have the local content integrated in the budget. Because we saw what happened when we lost our brother, the late General Lukech. There was a lot of confusion. Those who came from Kampala, they hurried and dropped some beans and some few bags of posho, and they ran away with money. And people suffered during the burial. So that's why we said,
did you ask for that money on your behalf or on behalf of
No. We said we need the local content. So the National Organizing Committee requested that the members from Acholi Parliamentary Group sitting on the National Organizing Committee should consult the local government, the religious leaders, and the cultural institution, then come with a budget. Now, when the budget was taken to the National Organizing Committee, instead of writing them as the budget for the burial and maybe the local content, they said the budget for Acholi Parliamentary Group. But the content is not money for Acholi Parliamentary Group. For example, we are talking about the council meeting, the joint council meeting of Lao, Acholi, and the West Nile that took place today. We are talking about the visitors that will keep coming to the family, and then the father need to be given some money to take care after the burial.
But Honorable, let me interrupt you there, because I think the last meeting that we had, and you attended from the home of the late Speaker, and one of the ministers who is part of the National Organizing Committee did say that they even told you, members of Parliament from Acholi sub-region, that Parliament will contract service providers. The tents, the issue of feeding, the issue of the bola dancers will be paid directly. But you people were still pushing for that money.
The question came in that the budget was submitted by Acholi Parliamentary Group, but not for Acholi Parliamentary Group. I think that's the problem. The budget was submitted by Acholi Parliamentary Group, but not for Acholi Parliamentary Group. It is for local government of Omoro. It is for the bola dancers. It is for the father of Jacob to take care of home. It is for clearing the compound. That is not a
okay.
for Acholi Parliamentary.
Okay, I'm definitely going to come back to you. My time is running really quick because I need to hand over to Charles in the studio. But let me get to Honorable Chris Barimozi. And this is the question I'm going to ask you, Honorable Minister. Do you feel disappointed on how government handled the entire process from taking Honorable Jacob to Chateau, bringing him back, the issue of the money that became controversial in this country and people talked about it and it became so political?
Well, thank you very much, Charles, and once again, good evening, viewers, and my condolences to the family of Jacob and Ugandans and humanity, because Jacob's impact goes beyond his constituency, goes even beyond the country of Uganda. And we have had time in the last 3 weeks or so since he passed on to really discuss him, which is also a positive side that we've been able to have a lot of discussion and draw lessons from the death of Jacob. Well, we are not disappointed as government in terms of the arrangements, because one, that Jacob was sick and he was referred by the medical doctors who were handling him to Seattle in the US. I have said this several times that a medical referral is part of management of patients. And when a patient is referred from one place to the other, it doesn't necessarily mean that where he's being referred from, that the services have collapsed. No. They are usually grades, and you refer from one grade to the other. So if there is a service which could be offered from Seattle, it was proper and appropriate for the doctors to refer him there. And even doctors in the US, they also refer to Asia, they refer to Europe. That's how the medical system works. That's why we have health facilities at different levels. Here we have Guru Regional Referral Hospital with consultants. If they get a patient and they feel they need more specialized care, they can refer this patient to Marago. It doesn't mean that in Guru services have collapsed, but it means Marago has slightly higher level services in terms of equipment, in terms of human resource, and that's how the medical profession handles management of patients. So from a professional standpoint, there is nothing wrong with referring a patient, even from a country to another country. Even in Uganda, like when the cancer machine collapsed some few years back, there was a big actually challenge with the people in the DRC, Congo, and Rwanda, because many of them were using the radiotherapy services in Marago. And now we restored the services, and they come from Tanzania to get services from Marago. So you can't condemn Tanzania or Rwanda or DRC because their patients are coming to Uganda. So medical referral is okay. And the government did whatever it could to bring back the life of Jacob, but unfortunately he passed on in Seattle, as we all know, and also had to bring back the body and foot the bills for the funeral arrangements. Now, the controversy about the budget and so forth, it was uncalled for. First of all, the law, the Parliamentary Pensions Act, provides for how we manage funeral arrangements of a speaker or deputy speaker who dies in office. And the law provides for a state funeral, and actually it even gives the guidance on how much money you can spend. It says if a speaker or a deputy dies in the office, then you spend up to 30% of the annual gross salary of the speaker. But when the parliament computed the figures, it came up to 60 million shillings. So I think there's something wrong with the law also. And we've been even budgeting more than that for a member of parliament who dies. But we didn't follow what the law provides. And yes, the initial draft was indicating, I think, 2.5 billion, but it was later revised. I think it leaked when it was still a draft. And from the government side, there was no problem, and there's still no problem even spending more, provided we identify the essential activities which must be supported. And I have said this before, that even when the final budget came with 1.2 billion, should there be an activity that is agreed upon that it is extremely essential and it goes over and beyond 1.2 billion, the government will still incur that expense. So therefore there was no need for that so-called controversy about the budget. And I think so far we are supporting all the activities as budgeted. I want to agree with my brother here that the issue of budget for members of parliament from Asholi, I think, was misrepresented.
But also, Honorable Chris, do you feel
some of the activity, like grading of roads and the sitting of the regional council, I think were all heaped on MPs, which was not correct.
Honorable Minister, because this communication probably came from different parts, do you feel that as government also you didn't do right in terms of the channel of communication? Because even that 312 million was leaked by somebody in government. And again, you're saying if there's need, even 1.2 billion can be given more money. And today we're in Omoro. Let me just be particular to the event that happened today. And you could see that even the chairs, probably which has been set where the prayers will happen tomorrow, were lacking where the council meeting will take place. I spoke to some of the members of parliament that says they even had to call the Speaker of Parliament to intervene and the Deputy Speaker. Do you feel that government also somewhere did not handle communication well, that made people had this abrua about your money?
Well, people have different intentions why they show different behaviors, because the members of parliament were part of the National Organizing Committee, which was discussing the budget. And when we say 1.2, it means an estimate. It can actually get lower or get above that. Unless if you're saying people who budgeted for the arrangements now for the regional council under budgeted. But otherwise there should be no reason as to why the chairs are either few or there is something lacking. And I don't get clearly what the gap was. You are saying that the chairs were not enough?
Some of the members of parliament said they even had to call the deputy speaker to intervene on the issue of the chair to be brought where the council meeting was taking place. But that is something that we had.
That could be just the gaps in arrangements. Because so what did the deputy speaker do? He went and carried the chairs on his head or what? Because we knew the number of the councillors in the region.
And the chair is saying the budget affected it. But Honorable Chris, because I have only 5 minutes.
No. That's not true. That's not also. If you know the number of councillors from West Nile, from Lango, from Macholi, and the ministers and MPs who would be there, it's a matter of saying we need maybe 2,000 chairs. And then you bring them. And once an invoice is raised, it will be cleared.
And that takes us back to the planning issue, because I think these were some of the gaps.
Yeah, but the MPs are the ones who did the budget.
Okay.
So, but I think sometimes we just bring in politics, which is not called for, but we provided the money and we
for the services.
It should be able to cater for what we need to spend on.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chris. I have only 5 minutes left, and I'll be handing back to Charles. But let me start with Honorable Mao, just in a minute. What is your conclusion? The late Jacob Olunyah will be buried tomorrow. What is your last remark for today?
We should see a man who did his best with whatever gifts God gave him. He remains an inspiration. He remains a person who was able to cross party lines. He remains a person who was having a set of hard skills, knowledge of the law and the rules of parliament. And all the MPs had a lot of expectations of him. We have seen, there are many things Jacob was trying to do. Some of them I don't have time to talk about here. But he had grand plans. And some of them we did not even know. But we must also have this picture of a man who bore a lot of physical pain.
Okay.
And behind that smile and cheerfulness, there was a lot of pain because of the afflictions and illnesses that he was battling. Okay. So we must salute his courage, both physical and moral, for taking hard decisions.
Thank you. Let me get to Honorable Call Anthony just in a minute. What is your final word? And probably your brother Jacob Olunyah will be buried tomorrow.
I think the most important thing is not how many years you live in this world. And that can be seen from Jacob was only 58 years, but he has done a lot of things. You will recall that it is not about, you will now see that it is not about how many years you've lived in this world. There are people who lived for 110 years, 120 years, but they are not known.
Okay.
So that means what matters is what you do with your life when you're still here. Even Jesus Christ lived only for 33 years. And we have the followers on a daily basis still.
Okay.
But above all, Jacob stood for unity of the country. He was a person who kept preaching for unity. And I think we should borrow from him. After his death, a lot of things happened, but there is unity now coming.
Okay.
You will recall how his lordship, the Chief Justice, went to the Kingdom of Uganda. And we should learn something from that point.
Thank you.
That we need to leave this country a better country than what we've gotten.
Thank you.
Because, I mean, we are taking custodian of this country. We are leaving to the younger generation. How are we going to leave it? Is it a better country or not?
My time is far-fetched. Let me get to Honorable Chris Baramosi. Your last statement, and probably I know you're here to bury the former Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olunyah.
Yes, we are here to give him a final send-off. Jacob was a person who cut across all tribes and all people of different categories. And therefore, this talk of tribalism should be condemned because Jacob was not tribalistic. Yeah. As parliamentarians, he was a smart parliamentarian who taught us debating skills, legislative skills, and we shall greatly and dearly miss him because he was a star in terms of parliamentary work. He is a person, because I worked closely with him in parliament, but also had known him much earlier from Makerere days, who was incorruptible and somebody who never was greedy or wanting material wealth. He was satisfied with whatever he was earning. Okay. Very honest and dependable, somebody whom you agreed to do this and he would religiously do it. Very many attributes, but because of time we cannot exhaust all of them. So we shall dearly miss him and once again convey our condolences to his children, the family, the people of this region, his constituency that he represented, the NRM family. He was our vice chairperson of NRM for Northern Region, and I am the vice chair for Western. So we sat together in the Central Executive Committee, and we shared a lot. We had our own views how we should push the party going forward, but sadly he has gone at another stage. But we continue to pray that the good Lord rests his soul in peace and continues to comfort members of his family.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chris Baramosi, for joining us today from Gulu. Honorable Norbert Mao, commonly known as Chairman Mao, and as well Honorable Akol Anthony, the chair of the Chile Parliamentary Group. Of course, the discussion has been about the late Right Honorable Jacob Olunya, and today I witnessed the first of its kind, a joint council meeting that took place at his home, and it had the Council of Lao Sub-Region, West Nile Sub-Region, and Acholi Sub-Region. I think it's the first of its kind. In the led General Paul Lokech send-off, we saw the joint council meeting of Acholi, but not of Northern Uganda. And that tells you a lot about a man who tried to unify this region and this country. And that's a man we are talking about today. Charles, in the studio, I want to get back to you, and my job from this side ends here, and to continue with the front line from the other side from the studio.
Thank you very much, Benson Ongom, for bringing us that part of the front line. I think it's also the first time that we're having the front line run this way, with an almost full panel, a full discussion coming out of Gulu. Let me introduce the people that I have in studio who've been waiting to be introduced. And I have, from Kira Municipality, I have the Honorable Ibrahim Semoju Nganda. Very nice to have you on the front line.
Thank you, Charles.
I also have frontliner. So one frontliner is in Gulu. Another frontliner is here in studio. I have Mr. Fonopondo. Mr. Fonopondo, very nice to have you here, sir.
Podel.
Huh? Thank you, and I did not know that we could have such a moderator. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Excellent, yes.
Yes, Mr. Benson Ongom has been excellent.
Benson Ongom, that's for you. That's a compliment for you, and I think the people in studio here agree. We have consensus that you've done an excellent job. And
except the pronunciation of Baromonsi. Yes, but well, it is acceptable. So
I struggle to pronounce Ofonopondo Podel. And we have the Honorable Winnie Kiza, former leader of opposition parliament, former member of parliament for Kasese district. Very nice to have you.
Thank you.
I want to pick up from where Benson stopped and the other panelists. Norbert Mao, Dr. Chris Baryomonsi, and the Honorable Anthony Akol. One of the major issues, Honorable Semoju Nganda, that has come up is the controversy, the stark contradiction between the eulogies, the tributes being paid to Jacob Olunya, and the controversies that have followed his sickness, his treatment, and now his burial. What explains this?
There is a in Parliament, I accused this government of incompetence. Part of it has been incompetence. Part of it is greedy. But also, as the Honorable Norbert Mao mentioned, it also falls under incompetence, the communication. Because even at a parliamentary level, to get to know what was disturbing the speaker, we were just hearing rumors. He's now in Morago. Maybe they are not, is not accessible. I think one MP demanded to know what had happened to the speaker. So there was no proper communication about the last days of the speaker. And that's what fueled speculation, especially in the social media. He's dead, he's not dead, he's dead, he's not dead. Because even flying him to Seattle, I think the public was not told until a news story, I don't remember whether it was in Monitor. And so the government was doing a catch-up. You've flown someone, because a speaker, someone you're going to even accord the state burial, is a very important person for the country to know if he has a problem. But it's an African problem. African leaders tend to hide their sickness. Maybe they want to behave like they are immortals. So there wasn't proper communication during the final days of the speaker, the handling of his treatment, and the handling of his funeral has been a public relations disaster. That's the point I tried to make in Parliament. Simple things that government was supposed to explain, they didn't explain. We've spent, even today you've seen, a number of hours discussing a budget of 2.5, 1.8. Yet if you calculate the cost that is involved in according someone's state funeral, it will be more than 60 billion. Tomorrow, we're not working. You can't go to a bank and work. I didn't know that that's what a state funeral means. Because the whole country now must participate. You will not go to URA to pay taxes. URA will not collect money. And on average, I think URA should be collecting more than 70 billion shilling, about 60. So because the whole country is participating in a burial, it is extremely expensive. But we are being made to make a decision on the basis of the budget. But also the fidgeting. I don't know why NRM people like fidgeting. The other day I asked, was it necessary for the Minister of Finance to table in Parliament what they called a statutory revision of the parliamentary budget to indicate that the parliamentary budget will increase by 1.8 billion meant to fund the funeral? Was that there? Because you don't want the public to discuss the budget, but you're providing figures to the public to discuss the budget, including the media. So there has been a bit of fidget. NRM people tend to behave in such a way, they behave like suspects all the time. When you look at them, it's like they're about to commit a crime. So even when they are doing something good, the way they behave will make you believe that actually what they are doing is not right.
That's what suspicious all the time.
You will be suspicious. What are they doing? Is it the right thing? So that's how they have handled the sickness of the speaker. That's how they have handled the funeral itself. But Charles, let me give you. I was in Ghana. One of the former ministers in J. Rawlings' government told us when they lost, I've said this many times, when they lost power, they didn't know how to hand over power, simple as it may look. And he said the following day, first of all, they wanted to buy time to discuss with the military, so the military does not allow the opposition to take over. As they were discussing that, the chief of staff, who is the highest ranking military officer, went to congratulate the opposition. They say, now we are finished. The following day, the former minister told me, the opposition came knocking at our door. Give us this, no handover report and nothing. And eventually they did what they called a transitional law, even appointed transition director. The state funeral, maybe people all along thought it will never come. Because by you not wanting it, doesn't mean it will not come. There are candidates for state funerals. The speaker was just one of them. The president is another one. So you need to go into details of what it means and how to organize it, because it is a statutory requirement.
So what you're suggesting is that this is a learning curve in a way, unfortunate as it is.
It is unfortunate. I don't know whether NRM people want to run, because they behave the same way. When they're organizing Chogamu, they were fighting over money, fighting over who supplies what. it's uncharacteristic that this group.
Just help our viewer understand. There was this pulling of the rope. The budget for the Acholi parliamentary group, which Anthony said they just provided the budget, it wasn't money supposed to go to them, was one part of the controversy. The other part of the controversy, you have a national organizing committee chaired by the Minister for the Presidency that generated this budget. Was it supposed to be money that goes to NOC, NOC, or was it money that was supposed to come to Parliament? Where should it have been?
First of all, the way government works through suppliers. Even to go to the Acholi MPs and ask them to make a budget was also ridiculous. Because these MPs should have been marched away immediately. They had no business. Their business was to mourn their foreign colleague, but not to go and begin organizing chairs, because this is a state funeral. And the government gets services through suppliers that are listed. All you do is to identify which service you need, and then the government will contract those suppliers to provide it. But the moment you begin inviting Acholi MPs, and I don't know why the Acholis became so excited with the death that they must participate in each and everything. The Chief Justice, he had all along, but now on each and every matter he's making a comment. The Acholi parliamentary group every day are throwing tantrums. So I don't know. We need to learn that if there are requirements in the law, you need to draw guidelines of how those requirements are implemented. I don't think the guidelines are there. As I said, there may not be many people who are going to be accorded the state funeral. Of course, from the president, maybe vice, and then you generate guidelines of how these things are going to be done. But let me tell you, there are a lot of fidgeting, a lot of movement unnecessary. And some people, and I have known them before, I remember there is a person who died, I will not say his name. His friends who were in government, the moment the president said make a budget, they were sharing, let me be the one to bring this, let me be the one. This is characteristic of NRM people. Even a funeral is an opportunity for them.
To make some money.
So therefore, there was mishandling. The Acholis, if this is going to be a state funeral, why do you think, like the Honorable Anthony said there, that Acholis must be present on each and every... Was this a traditional function of Acholis? That MPs of Acholi have to be represented on each and every committee? A state funeral, you should demand for service. Whoever delivers it is none of my business. Because some of those who are going to be hired, either they are Kenyans or they are Indians, because government is looking for service provider. So you Acholi people, you can only query.
But how do you bury your son and the local people haven't benefited from...
Eventually, because you see, the moment government public money is spent, this money will be audited. So do you want to be accused of mismanaging and mishandling funds when the speaker died? Because this is public money. That's what it means. It will be audited by the Auditor General. And then we invite, as Parliament, we begin inviting Anthony Okoro, you come here and explain. Is that what they want?
Money for cleaning the compound.
Yes, is that what they want?
Mr. Fonopondo, what explains this confusion in communication right from the start? And even the pulling of ropes, government doesn't come out looking good.
Well, I think it is the nature of death and our African culture now, not to accept that there is death going to happen. So we behave all the time. Even when somebody has been sick for a long time, we behave as if it was sudden. And so the rules sometimes don't apply. Honorable Semuju says that Africans like keeping health issues private. I think that's in the law somewhere, confidentiality of the patient and so on. But we Africans, even wealth, we don't share. Very few Africans will tell their wives, their spouses, what they have. Will tell their children, even adult children, what they have. Very few of you will tell people how many children you have. So it is when you die, then people stumble. If you are lucky to have written them somewhere, maybe in the office drawer, your close confidants are the ones who will know. Your family members may not know in detail what you have or the value of those things. So it is not just about health. It is, and I think we need gradually to begin breaking. Bring our children early, bring your spouse early into what you have. Be honest. And so on. So I think that's the starting point for me. Now, in this particular case, you know, we have had a parliament and parliamentary administration that has been overbearing. That it becomes almost as if you are an intruder. If a member of parliament dies and you declare official burial, you declare a state burial like this one. So in my view, I think, as they say, too many cooks spoil the broth. Many of us initially stood aloof. We said, this is a member of parliament. Members of parliament initially passed a law how a dead speaker, a dead deputy speaker, a dead member of parliament is handled. So I think many people stood aloof and said, this should be the work of parliament. But along the way, the president seized the initiative once Olunyah died and announced the series, the fact that it's going to be a state funeral and what constitutes a state funeral, which you had asked. Once somebody dies and the president declares the state funeral for someone, whether it's a government official or a prominent figure, then there are things that must be done. Immediately they take over the body, management of the body, often including paying medical bills, repatriation in this particular case, if it's abroad, or management at local hospitals, health facilities here, and so on, until the person is finally sent off. In our African tradition, there are many things that we have incorporated that we must do even when they are not stipulated in the law. For example, feeding mourners. You have heard actual parliamentary people saying that in Muyenga they have been feeding 2,000 people every day. I don't know how many we have been feeding in Lalogi for the past 20 days. I don't know how many. But that's not stipulated in the law. And I agree with the Honorable Semuji. Once we passed the categories of people who qualify for state funeral, we should have passed a policy as well, and then the guidelines. What is it that the government,
the state funeral,
that the government, what's the role of government, and what are the items that the government has to shoulder to give a complete state funeral? So I think this is a learning curve. We have held state funerals before. The first one was actually the burial of Sir Edward Mutesa in 1971. Maybe because we don't keep records, nobody has gone back to check what was done at that time, which we can build on. We offered Milton Obote a state funeral in 2005. Only recently,
even we offered Yusuf Lule. Only recently, last 2 months, we have offered two. Professor Tumusime Mutevile, we offered a state funeral. More, we offered a state funeral. In those particular two, Tumusime Mutevile and more, we did not have these controversies. They went smooth. I was in Tororo, for example, for more. I was also in Serere. What I know is that the government handled everything 100%.
Is there a difference, for the benefit of a viewer, between an official funeral and a state funeral? Are they one and the same?
I am telling you that Mtevile and Emormor were both accorded state funerals. I know from the chairs, the bottles of water that were drunk, the meals, and so on. In Tororo, where Mormor was, they paid his body lay in state for the eaters there, and the Japadra to pay respect.
Yeah, but you see, the difference
is
that these state funerals were being offered by the president. The one of the speaker is offered by the law and their details.
And if it is offered by the law and their details, that's the more reason why what you concluded with, why a Chole parliamentary group shouldn't have been there. National Organizing Committee, which is chaired by the Minister for the Presidency, no matter who is there, was the principal and is the principal manager of a state funeral like this one, like any other state function. Now, in my view, I think she should have called the Speaker to nominate a subcommittee of parliament, members of parliament, to go and sit so that they factor in the other interests of parliament. And in the wisdom of the Speaker and the clerk, they can then nominate 1 or 2 actual parliamentary group to bring in the local content a call was talking about. And not for actually parliamentary group to say, now we are actually parliamentary group, this is the interest of our son. No, that shouldn't have. But I think it is a weakness in leadership, or perhaps the sensitivity of the matter. But don't want, you saw how a call has been shouting. I don't know if you have watched the video of Abel. Abel, the MP, the woman MP for Kitgum. How they were standing up and banging tables at the National Organizing Committee meetings and saying, if the government doesn't want to give us the money, we can now mobilize money as actual MPs. So I think maybe that sensitivity, you don't want to cause a scene, so you allow the accords to stream off, and eventually they come to line, they discover that there are things, their shouting alone cannot help.
But Mr. Pondo,